Are you the friend who's always being asked for health advice? Now imagine turning that passion into a fulfilling career with our Become a Nutrition Coach program. Step into a world where your enthusiasm for wellness becomes the heart of your own thriving business. With me as your professor and guide and coach on our user-friendly digital platform, you can learn from anywhere at your very own pace. It's perfect for your busy life. Envision empowering others to live their healthiest lives, all while growing a career you love. You're not just gaining a certification here, you're joining a community of like-minded professionals ready to support and celebrate with you every step of the way. So what are you waiting for? It's time to nourish your future and help change lives, including your own. Head over to nutritiouslife.com/BNC for a free class and a sneak peek of the program. Your journey to becoming a nutrition coach begins now. If you've ever looked in the mirror and thought, what do I do with my skin? Where do I begin? What's the best way to take care of it? Then this podcast is for you. Welcome to the Living a Nutritious Life podcast. I'm your host, Keri Glassman, and today is all about the intersection of wellness and skincare. And I'm chatting with my dear friend, my own dermatologist, the one and only renowned Dr. Whitney Bowe. Dr. Whitney Bowe is a board-certified dermatologist and scientist based in New York. More than a decade ago, Dr. Bowe championed a focus on the skin-gut-mind connection. Her three-dimensional approach to skincare, treating skin from both the outside and the inside, challenged long-held beliefs within the field of dermatology. Dr. Bowe's practice has been capped for 6 years. Now with Dr. Whitney Bowe Beauty, however, you too can access one of the most in-demand derms in the country from your very own home. In today's podcast, I asked Whitney about the myths of modern skincare. What works? What doesn't work? What may be doing more harm than good? Of course, I also had to ask Whitney to give us an exact step-by-step explanation of what skin cycling is. If you don't know, she created this revolutionary method that is storming social media. We also explored lasers, and of course, I also had to ask about protecting our skin from the sun and at the same time reaping the benefits of vitamin D. For everyone looking to up their skincare game, this one is for you. And if you love the podcast, please rate, review, and share with all of your friends. Welcome to Living a Nutritious Life. I'm Keri Glassman, a celebrity registered dietitian nutritionist. Join me every Tuesday on YouTube and your favorite podcast platforms as I bring in some heavy hitters to share the latest in nutrition and wellness science. We dive deep into food, sleep, stress, relationships, and so much more. Your weekly guide to a happier, healthier, more nutritious life. Whitney, I'm so happy to have you on here. So I've had lots of guests on the podcast already, of course, but you are someone that I have been wanting to have on since day one of the podcast because you are not only a friend and an old friend at this point. Now we've been friends for a long time, but
about a decade, I think.
Right? I think it's a decade now, right? I know. And also, you're someone that has been a friend to the Nutritious Life community. You've contributed, you're on our website. You've contributed as a guest expert in my program. You've spoken at my masterclass, and you've done even some private chats for my crew. So you've really been a great friend to the Nutritious Life Studio community. You've been a great friend to me. And you are also, of course, my fabulous dermatologist that I love to see. So many reasons I have really wanted to get you on here. So I am just so happy and thrilled to finally have this conversation with you.
Oh, it's such an honor to be a guest. I feel like you and your community are always, you are a beacon of knowledge. You spew knowledge. You've taught me so much. And I feel like your community is so inquisitive. Like they genuinely want to take that deep dive in a way that really inspires me to keep educating at the level that, I always hope that people actually care and want to know, really
Right.
the science behind things. But I feel like whenever, I speak with anyone that's part of your community, I always feel like I'm just, that fire is ignited because they are so curious and so smart and come to the table with such incredible questions. So I'm excited to be speaking with that kind of an audience today. And of
Oh,
course, speaking with you, because I feel like you and I could have these kind of intellectual discussions like forever. And so it's great
ever.
to have
I
everybody
know.
else be able to witness one of them, right?
Right. Well, it's so true. Well, first of all, I'm so happy you said that about our community because I do feel that way about the community. So it's nice to know that you feel that way as well. And I agree. We could have these types of conversations forever. I mean, when I'm in your office, you got to kick me out because I just ask question after question and I just want to know everything. And I will
No,
say
it's
though,
my
you don't
nurses that
really.
come in
No,
because we can talk to each other forever.
I was just going to say, you don't actually kick me out because you give all of your patients so much time. But I'm just saying I can overstay my welcome in your office.
Not at all. But thank
That's,
goodness I have our nurses to keep us on track because I literally could stay in that room with you forever.
I know. We have so much fun though. Okay. So we're going to talk today about some of the things that
Let's do
we
it.
talk about when I'm in that office with you. So let's dive in. Let's do this. Wait, actually, one more personal thing before we dive in here. I was thinking about it, and we just mentioned that I think we've been friends now for 10 years. Did we first meet? I was trying to remember. Was it in the Rachel Ray Green Room? Was that our
I
first
think that
time
was
we?
our first meeting.
Okay.
So I mean, we've done so many shows together. We've been backstage so many times. We've been at events. We've interacted in so many different ways over the years. But I think the very very first time I was sitting in a chair in the green room at Rachel Ray getting hair and makeup, looked to my right, and there you were. And I think I introduced myself. I think I said like, "Oh gosh, like, are you Keri Glassman?" And you're like, "I am she." Yes. No, you were warm. You were so welcoming. And
Aw.
I think we just started talking and talking and talking. And I think we both could have just like hung out in that green room all day, but we both had our little hits to get in our little segments with it. It was that studio was freezing. I think, but just because of the food, they had to keep the food very cold. But I remember like wanting to be in 17 layers and like bringing chemical warmers that I ski with.
I
So
know
I was like all bundled up back there in the green room.
Yeah, it's so funny that you're saying that because I think a lot of studios are generally very cold, but I do remember that studio in particular
Particularly
being
cold.
very cold. But I couldn't remember where that first. I knew it was a green room. I couldn't remember exactly where, but
Yeah,
I
it was
just remember we
Rachel.
started talking and we were just like yapping away, and then we're like, okay, wait, we got to go focus on our segments, and I
Can you,
couldn't remember where
can
it
you believe
was.
how old we are that now Rachel Ray's show is not even on air
I
anymore?
know
Like
it's
that's just
crazy.
crazy.
I know. Okay, all right, we're gonna dive in now. Okay, so first question I have for you today is I know that you treat lots of personalities, TV personalities, celebrities, and a lot of faces that we would recognize. So, what are some of the most popular procedures that your patients are requesting these days?
Okay, so that's a great question. So, springtime, a lot of my patients right now are really focused on just having their healthy, glowing skin shine through. Like people in the spring tend to use less makeup, foundation, and they would love to rely more on either a tinted sunscreen or
Hmm.
putting on a sunscreen followed by a tinted moisturizer, something that's just lighter weight that really lets their skin shine through and their healthy glow shine through. So right now, one of the hottest procedures really has to do with skin resurfacing. And for that, I'm doing a lot of laser procedures.
Hmm.
Specifically, I love the Fraxel laser for that. It's a beautiful laser that just helps to smooth out the texture, helps with pores, helps even out skin tone, brightens the skin, speeds skin cell turnover. So you just have that brighter, healthier glow. You can actually achieve a lot of those things from skincare, diet, nutrition, efficient stress management, without going in and spending a fortune, in the office. But for people who, have that disposable income and they're looking for that like accelerated kind of a response, and they want that more dramatic, result right away, then the lasers are really hot right now. I'm lasering everybody right now. It's a big ask.
Okay, so I have a question on that, because I think I even know when I have conversations with friends or with clients or colleagues, and we're talking about skincare, and people say, oh, I went in and I did this laser, or I did this, or I did Fraxel. I feel like people are really confused, though, on all the different terminology and what's the difference between Fraxel and Clear and Brilliant, and what is a laser actually doing in general, and what's Morpheus. And I think like people really are confused between all the different laser options. So can you clarify that a little bit more, and what exactly is a laser doing?
Sure. I mean, that could be its own podcast. There's
I
so much
know.
information there, but just to distill it down into some of the
Yeah.
basics, so there's laser resurfacing. A laser is actually a specific wavelength. So when you think about that laser beam actually hitting the skin, it's going to do something very specific. So there's specific lasers for broken blood vessels, for example, that actually target hemoglobin. So if you're somebody who has like broken blood vessels along your nose, a lot of people who are prone to rosacea, they'll get broken blood vessels. If that's something that bothers you, there's a specific laser for that. When it comes to Fraxel, it's actually a laser that targets the superficial layers in the skin, but does it in a way that doesn't really lead to too much downtime. Like in the past, we used to do laser resurfacing, and people they'd stay home for weeks. They were bright red. They looked like burn victims, right? And they couldn't go out. And now there's these newer types of lasers that actually create these little, like almost like a tic-tac-toe board of deliberate wounding in the skin, but it leaves enough skin that's healthy and not wounded that you actually heal very quickly. So when I do a laser in the office with my patients, a lot of my patients are on air, public personalities. They need to be back on live television within days. So we're able to do Fraxel lasers, and within days, they're able to recover very quickly. And so that's sort of a unique laser. Now, when you said Morpheus, that's a very hot type of device lately that a lot of people are using. There's different brand names. There's Morpheus, the EndyMed Intensive. There's all different brand names for it. But basically what it is it's a type of device that combines radio frequency energy with microneedling. So microneedling is, again, a form of just deliberate wounding in the skin, where you're creating like these tiny little tic-tac-toe board of wounds in the skin to sort of deliberately stimulate and wake up your cells that make collagen, elastin. They're called fibroblasts. So you're deliberately creating that wounding. So your cells sort of wake up and say, oh my gosh, I need to heal this wound, revs up your collagen production. Now you can do microneedling with your own blood, something called PRP. We actually spin your blood down in a centrifuge. We separate out the plasma, which is rich in growth factors, paint it on the skin and microneedle it. But there's newer devices that actually deliver radio frequency energy with microneedling at the same time. So that's like what the Morpheus or the EndyMed Intensive do. So it's kind of a very interesting technology. It's great for acne scars. It's great for pores. It's great for texture. For my patients who come in and they feel like their neck looks kind of crepey, almost like cigarette paper texture to the neck, if we do a series of the radio frequency microneedling treatments, it can help to smooth and firm that neck tissue over time. And of course, in between treatments, I'm talking to people about sun protection, not smoking, managing their stress, getting enough sleep, eating healthy, skincare. Like those are hugely important, right, in between the treatments. But for people who really want to see more of that wow result, we can throw in some of these devices in between.
Okay, but just back to the laser for a second. The laser is still doing that same little damage to the skin so that it will stimulate the production of collagen in the same way that the microneedling in the Morpheus is.
So for
depending
example,
on it. Okay.
Fraxel does do that. So Fraxel does stimulate your own collagen, so it can lead to firming over time. But say, for example, you're using a laser that's just for pigment or just for tattoo removal or just for broken blood vessels, you may not get that overall rejuvenating collagen stimulating effect. So that's why it's so important to, you want to go to somebody who's really experienced, with these devices, because there's a lot of physics behind them. You really want to understand like what wavelength you're choosing, what energy, we put in joules, we put in depth, there's a lot of different things that we're sort of tweaking as we're talking to you and acting like, we're just having a conversation. We're sort of changing a lot of these parameters in the device itself. And specifically, if you're somebody who has skin of color, if you have a deeper skin tone, if you're prone to what's called post-inflammatory hyperpigmentation, meaning if you get like an acne pimple and when it goes away, it leaves a dark mark, you want to be really, really, really careful with lasers and light-based devices, even ones that you can get at home, like even the ones at home for laser hair removal or, the new face or, all these different LED devices. Like you have to be really careful about the devices that you're using either at home or in the office, because there are certain energy wavelengths and devices that can increase your risk for hyperpigmentation or dark spots. And those can actually persist for months in some people.
Last question about the damaging your skin a little bit to increase the collagen production. I remember I once texted you this because I had bought, I think even on Amazon, one of those little at-home micro needlers, and I wanted to use it before I applied my vitamin C and did my nighttime skincare routine, in the effort to, I guess in the spirit of, I should say, of maximizing my skincare. When you create those little tiny little whatever abrasions or whatever you want to call.
Yeah, like almost like micro channels, right? Like they're tiny little channels. Yeah.
That you then absorb your skincare better. And I remember I had started doing that. And then I said, I should really ask Whit about this. And I texted you, and you were not a fan of using those little micro needlers at home. How do you feel about them now? Have they changed? Is there anything new there?
Most dermatologists are not fans of using the most at-home microneedling devices. Number one is that they really don't penetrate very deeply. So you're not getting that collagen stimulation. If anything, you're literally just poking like very superficial holes in your stratum corneum, which can be, a good thing, but with the wrong product, it can be a bad thing. So there's actually cases where people have had granulomas and actually inflammatory nodules because the skincare product that they were using wasn't meant to go that deep.
Okay, that
so
makes
it actually didn't do well with that person's skin, so I think it's a little bit scary for doctors to hear that people are sort of doing that at home with random skincare products that might have either preservatives, fragrances, maybe there's forms of vitamin C that you are not going to tolerate, if it's actually pushing into a deeper layer. The other thing with those devices in particular is that we've seen cases of infection. They're much more challenging to keep a sterile technique when you're doing it at home.
Right.
We've seen cases where people just don't hold it in the right sort of manner against the skin surface. It almost drags against the skin. It creates scar tissue, as opposed to, in the office when we're using usually more expensive devices that are, clinically proven and FDA approved to be used in a clinical setting. And we're using them in a very particular way so that we know that we're getting that angle of penetration exactly where it's supposed to be, and we're not creating any kind of drag. So there's definitely side effects when you start using these products at home. There are some newer devices that are coming out that are a little bit more foolproof, a little bit safer for people at home, the lay person, to start using. But we're really sort of at, those have not been rigorously studied. So, we're in general, dermatologists are not huge fans of people doing microneedling at home.
Yeah, that all makes a lot of sense. And it kind of sounds like the smart move is to really have your good skincare regimen that you do at home. Visit your dermatologist. Maybe, I don't know how many times you recommend a year, but however many times a year for those treatments that are a little more intensive, and kind of keep it simple at home. Keep it simple at home. Don't play around too much.
Leveling up your skincare routine at home that doesn't involve, actually creating like micro wounds in your skin and, compromising your skin barrier like that. I mean, for example, in the spring, one of the things that I encourage a lot of my patients to do is to increase their retinoid nights, to try to increase the number of nights in a row, consecutive nights, that they're actually applying a retinoid. A lot of people aren't even using a retinoid. They're afraid of using a retinoid, right? So before you start microneedling, you might want to start thinking wait, is there another really powerful skincare ingredient that has a mountain of evidence behind it that we know is going to turn back the clock? We know is going to firm wrinkles, stimulate collagen synthesis, increase your own production of hyaluronic acid, even out your skin tone, brighten the skin complexion, collection that I'm not even using as part of my skincare routine. And maybe I start incorporating that or increasing the frequency or increasing the strength of that kind of a product before I dive into something a little more gimmicky like microneedling that maybe I saw on TikTok.
And just, I guess, be more intentional about it. Don't just, again, like you said, don't just start doing something or buy some gadget because you saw it on TikTok or Amazon was having a Prime Day or whatever. Don't start doing that.
Shopping, we've all done that, right? We see something and we're like, ooh, I'm so influenced. I want to get that and I want to use it right away. And I don't know what I'm doing. And I never asked a professional, but hey, like I might as well try it. But you have to think like, wait a second, take a beat. It's your face. So
well, it's your face, and also doing more isn't necessarily better, right?
I love
doing more, adding more products, adding more gadgets. That's not necessarily, going to get you the results you want. I think sometimes people feel like that. I'm going to get that gadget. I'm going to add that product, and they think that is going to be the answer. And oftentimes, they might need to do less, or they may need to just up level their whole lifestyle, which I know is something else that you believe really strongly in. So I want to ask you another question here. I know that you're referred to in the media as the 3D derm. So what does that mean to you? I know you believe in outer skincare and inner skincare, and we've talked a lot about that. Because obviously a lot of that relates to nutrition. So can you tell us your inner skincare and how it complements the creams and serums that you recommend? And again, back to the initial part of that question, 3D derm, what does it mean?
Yeah, so 3D derm, it's actually something one of my patients called me a 3D derm a couple of years ago, and the term stuck. But what it basically refers to is the fact that I take a very sort of integrative, holistic approach to patient care. So, a lot of my in-office time is spent doing procedures. I'm either holding a device, a laser, and a syringe, filler, toxin, etc. But during that time, I'm actively counseling my patients, asking them things like, what did you eat for breakfast? How are your stress levels? How did you sleep last night?
Right.
Because I am very passionate about the fact that there is something called a skin, gut, mind connection. And that's something that not only do I practice and talk about in my practice, but I've actually done a significant amount of research and lecturing in this area of how the skin and the mind are connected, and how the gut and the skin are connected, and how those three things, the skin, the gut, and the mind, all impact one another in a very impactful way. And so if in the past, when we used to think about skincare, we just thought about sort of what I call outer skincare, which is important. I'm not saying it's not important. It's incredibly important. It's what you apply directly on the surface of the skin. But it is really only one piece of the puzzle, right? You really also have to think about, what are you eating? Because your gut and your skin are absolutely, related. And those two are going to impact
100%.
one another. And there's crosstalk between the two. And of course, your mind is also going to impact the health of yours. As sort of a simple example of that is that we know when people go through exams or they have a stressful period at work or they're going through a divorce, like they're more likely to have acne and have breakouts. Mm-hmm. It's a real thing. It's a real phenomenon that's been documented. Some people, when they're embarrassed, they will flush or blush. Their blood vessels in their face will completely dilate, and they'll show signs of rosacea, right? So when people are very stressed, they lose their hair. And we saw that a lot during COVID. We had people who were losing clumps of hair, and we saw so much more scalp. We saw premature aging with prolonged stress. So there are so many different examples of how, if your gut is inflamed, your skin is inflamed. If you're stressed, especially chronic stress.
Was that all because of the cortisol? Because cortisol levels?
Absolutely. So as soon as you have persistent elevated cortisol, it is going to take a dramatic toll on the skin. It actually slows down wound healing in the skin. So you're more likely to say that you get a scrape. It takes you longer to actually heal. It inhibits the production of hyaluronic acid. It inhibits your skin's ability to trap and hold moisture, something called the skin barrier function. So your skin barrier becomes compromised. And it also slows down synthesis of collagen, those fibrils that keep your skin firm and tight. So, that persistent, stress hormone response can absolutely take a toll on your skin.
Well, I love this entire approach. I mean, you're reminding me, when I started my nutrition practice almost 25 years ago, I would ask people, I mean, you know what Nutritious Life is all about. I would ask people about their stress levels and their sleep and their relationship. And I would talk about how all of these things connected. And people back then, now it's much more normal for a dietitian, nutritionist to ask some of these questions. But almost 25 years ago, people looked at me like I had three heads. Like, why are you asking me about my stress levels? Why are you asking me about my sleep? But it's because it all connects. And so when I hear you talk about that with the skin, gut, mind connection, I love it. I get so excited because I think that's probably why 10 years ago, when in that
We
Rachel Ray
right
green room,
away.
we connected and we just started, again, yapping away because we had so much to discuss and we were so on the same page and aligned with this. But it does all go together. It does. And I love how you educate your patients on that. And you don't just say, hey, apply this or do this treatment, but you really are looking at people from a holistic way. And I can say, again, as a patient of yours, we've had those conversations, and not just because I am a dietitian, nutritionist, but as a patient, you've discussed those things with me. And back to, actually, I want to mention one other thing. You said it's not always more. It's not always doing the next thing. You will even advise people sometimes on doing less. I remember when I think the very first time I came to see you as a patient, probably soon after I had met you in that green room, you had said to me, your skin is so dry. And I said, I know it's been so dry. And you said you were doing, what was I doing too much? Was I doing too much retinol?
I think you were either exfoliating too much or you were using too much of
That's
the
what it
powerful
was.
acid. I think it was
It
exfoliation.
was glycolic acid. It was a pad I was using with glycolic acid. Yeah, because I don't think I really ever did the retinol too much, but that's what it was. But I knew I used to use a cream like that. So I was like, was that it? Yeah, it was those glycolic acid pads I was using that someone had recommended. And I was like, oh yeah, more better. Use them all the time. And you were like, whoa, simmer down there, Keri.
Right. It's actually damaging the skin barrier. And what was
Mm-hmm.
happening was it was dehydrating the skin, and then the skin was going into like defense mode. So instead
Right.
of being able to put its resources towards, producing collagen, elastin, and actually like doing what you wanted it to do, it just had this chronic low grade inflammation. It was almost like aging you more aggressively than, if you
Right.
sort of took a step back and think through a more deliberate, thoughtful approach to skincare. So, I mean, your skin is glowing right now. I'm looking at you, and every time I've seen you recently, you look amazing. So
Well,
I feel like
I don't know. I don't know about that, but if it is, I owe it to you, and some maybe good nutrition and hydration. But definitely, but I remember I was so grateful when you told me that, because I think, again, I was trying to be proactive and do all the things to prevent aging, and I was really doing some damage. So again, it kind of goes back to that intentional, holistic approach. And it's not always more being better.
I think that's
Just
probably why skin cycling went so
yes.
viral,
Yes. Okay, well, that was going to be my next thing, because when you brought up what people should be doing in the springtime with a little more of the retinol, let's talk about that. And as it relates to skin cycling, which you are also uber famous for, the skin cycling. You created skin cycling,
I did.
right?
So skin cycling now has well over like 3.5 billion views on social media, and it's just become
Crazy.
a global phenomenon
It's
where
wild.
I see different people in different countries, talking and educating.
I
It
love
really
it.
blew me away because it's something that I started introducing in my practice years ago. And I was seeing these transformational changes in my patient's skin and taking a very streamlined, again, less is more, approach to skincare, but in a very thoughtful, deliberate way, like using, my knowledge of skin biology, skin histology. I was coaching them through this routine, and we'll get to that in a second. And then, I started to see these changes, and it was so impressive to me. And once I sort of mastered like how to use it as a framework, and how to be able to sort of level up for certain people, level down for people with very sensitive, eczema, rosacea prone skin, there's different ways that you can sort of customize your skin cycling program. Once I really sort of mastered and had a lot of experience with it, I introduced it on social media, and it just took on a life of its own, because when people started adopting, that strategy and that program, they were sharing their before and afters, and it was able, because you can customize it, because it's flexible, it was able to meet so many people, wherever they were in their skincare journey, whether they had like oily combination skin struggling with breakouts, or if they were in their 40s, 50s, or 60s going through like perimenopause, menopause with aging. It just, so many different people were saying this has been a game changer for my skin. This is how I customize my, skin cycling program. So luckily it sort of happened, right after I launched my skincare line, Dr. Whitney Bowe Beauty. And so I was able to, it was so funny. It was one of those moments where I think, one of the skin cycling videos that was at like 19 million or something insane. And my team was like, oh my gosh, what's going on? And it was right at the launch of one of my products that I had called Exfoliation Night. I actually named it before I knew skin cycling was going to go even like viral,
Wow.
So I had my products are called like Exfoliation Night, Retinol Night. Like it was kind of funny that it all sort of happened at once. It was amazing. But skin cycling is basically thinking about skin cycling. One way of thinking about it is that you want to cycle between powerful actives and recovery nights because it really puts skin barrier health first and foremost. Our skin barrier health is so important. When you have a healthy skin barrier, you're able to trap and hold moisture in the skin very effectively, but you're also able to protect against allergens, irritants, pollutants, all these environmental aggressors that want to penetrate into the skin and trigger inflammation. When you have a healthy, intact barrier, you're able to protect against that. So you really want to make sure that your barrier is healthy. Your barrier, Keri, is what was kind of messed up when you came to see me, when you were over exfoliating, right? So with skin cycling, what happened was I was talking to my patients. I'd have them bring in their products. Okay, what are you using? How are you using it?
I want to take a moment to tell you about our podcast sponsor, which I'm a super fan of. In today's fast-paced go world, it's so easy to get overwhelmed and lose focus, especially when you're trying to accomplish critical tasks that require a sharp mind. If you're looking for a way to support your brain health and stay on top of your game, if you know me at all, you know I'm always looking to do that. Well, then you want to know about Cognizant Citicoline. This nutrient helps support brain function, and it plays a vital role in nourishing and protecting brain cells. Cognizant Citicoline can help support focus, memory, and attention, promote cognitive performance, and support overall brain health. It's also known for its ability to support brain energy and is backed by numerous studies that show its effectiveness. Whether you're a student, a busy professional, a multitasking parent, or anyone looking to optimize mental clarity and sharpness, adding Cognizant Citicoline to your daily routine can help you achieve those goals and support your brain for the future. It can be found in many different products, including chewables, gummies, beverages, and even cold brew coffee. Visit Cognizant.com for exactly where to find this ingredient, and don't forget to look for Cognizant on the label.
With skin cycling, what happened was I was talking to my patients. I'd have them bring in their products. Okay, what are you using? How are you using it? And I realized that so many people were taking what I call a kitchen sink approach to their skincare. They were sort of mixing, matching, layering like haphazard, didn't make sense. So I was like, okay, let's take a step back. Like, let's start with exfoliation night. Let's make that night one, because when you exfoliate, especially using chemical exfoliants like alpha hydroxy acids, beta hydroxy acids, polyhydroxy acids, you're actually speeding the skin cell turnover. You're gently dissolving away that.
Can I stop? I want to stop you right there for 1 second, though, because I know. So on that exfoliation night, how do you know what type of exfoliation you should do? Like you just mentioned a few different types. Like, how do you know what you should be using?
So my exfoliation night serum that I made with Dr. Whitney Bowe Beauty actually has a triple acid blend of all three of those acids. It's got 8% glycolic acid. And the reason I included 8% is because if you look in the literature, everything's very evidence-based. I'm a little bit of a nerd. I have a background in research.
By the way, I absolutely love it. And I know that all of your skincare products have research behind them.
The peer-reviewed publications. Like I'm bringing it to the level of, my background as a published research scientist. So when you exfoliate, like one of the things I always sort of stress with my patients is you don't want to use any kind of a gritty scrub. You don't want to use any kind of instruments like a buff puff, a loofah, a washcloth.
Okay.
If you take a scrub and you feel the particles in your finger, whether it's like sugar, sand, anything that feels sort of sandy or particulate, that's actually not great for the skin barrier. And you're not going to get all the amazing benefits that things like alpha hydroxy acids, beta hydroxy acids, and polyhydroxy acids can deliver for the skin.
It's so interesting because I feel like that's what people usually gravitate towards because you actually feel like you're doing something.
Exactly.
You're using something that does feel gritty and you feel like you're
Oh, I'm
scrubbing your
getting so
skin and
clean.
you do, like you feel like you're doing something, like you really are exfoliating.
Yeah.
So that's interesting to hear that. I think that's important for people to know that you
Yeah.
don't
Yeah.
actually want that gritty feeling.
No, when you do that, you're much more likely to disrupt the skin barrier, much like more likely to cause irritation in the skin, and actually you're much more likely to cause hyperpigmentation. So people who are
Hmm.
prone to having like a little bit of a darkening or dark patches on their face, if you even just use a washcloth every day and sort of rub with the washcloth, you can actually create patches of hyperpigmentation and uneven discoloration within the skin because your melanocytes, your pigment producing cells, sort of register that as trauma. They
Right.
see that as like, oh gosh, this is not healthy for me. And they pump out melanin to protect themselves. So, and you don't get any of the benefits. Like, for example, when you think about an ingredient like alpha hydroxy acid, like glycolic acid, which is one of the ingredients in my exfoliation night serum, if you use that at a certain concentration, there are studies that show that it can actually stimulate collagen synthesis. That's something I can say as a dermatologist, but not as a brand founder. We're not allowed to say that products change the structure and function of the skin. So here
Right.
I'm referring to a
But
study
as a derm.
yes, and the study shows when you use 8% glycolic acid or higher in a leave-on product in the skin, it can actually cause collagen stimulation and actually help with fine lines, wrinkles, like a real, age reversal kind of a benefit in the skin. It also can act as a humectant, meaning it's like a water magnet, and it actually hydrate the skin over time. So a lot of people don't think about that with exfoliating products. They don't think, oh, my skin's going to be like more hydrated if I use this
Right.
consistently over time. And we know it can even out skin tone. So that's something we looked at with our clinical studies. We showed a statistically significant improvement in people who had like dark patches, sun damage, sunspots. Like freckles are adorable, right? But when you have sunspots, when you reach a certain age and the freckles are not so cute because they're not freckles, you kind of want to, brighten those and even out the
Right. But
complexion.
that's why I think people do think of scrubbing. There's something where they feel like, okay, I'm scrubbing this off. I'm
I'm
scrubbing
scrubbing
those.
it off.
Right. You
Same thing
think
with
like there's
acne.
a,
People with acne like to scrub, like and it's our job to sort of educate and break that habit because skin barrier health is so important in
Mhm.
protecting the skin and keeping the skin healthy. And you'll actually get such better results if you can break that thought of number one mistake people make is that they over cleanse. They love that tight, squeaky clean feeling, like, ooh, my skin's not clean unless it feels tight and squeaky clean. Guess what? That's not clean skin. That's dry skin. You just used a cleanser that's not healthy for your skin. And another major mistake people make is that they're just over exfoliating or exfoliating the wrong way.
Okay, so after we exfoliate the right way on night one, what comes next in skin cycling?
So that sort of sets the stage for skin cycling because those chemical exfoliants are actually going to also dissolve away the uppermost layer of dead
Hmm.
skin cells. So everything else you do in all the subsequent nights is actually going to work better because it's going
Hmm.
to penetrate more effectively into the skin. Okay, so night 2 is going to be your retinoid night. So you can
Hmm.
either choose a retinol. So my personal favorite is retinal with an AL, and that's why I formulated my product with retinal. It's actually 10 times more bioavailable than retinol. So it's actually closer. It's the closest thing over the counter to prescription strength retinoid.
So retinal, AL
Retinal with
versus
an
OL.
AL
So
over 10
AL versus
times.
OL is more effective
Yeah.
than OL. Okay.
Than OL. OL is a little bit more of that traditional old school form of a retinoid. And
Okay.
then the prescription strength is called retinoic acid. You can get a
Right.
prescription called like tretinoin or Tazarac, Tazarotene. A lot of people can't tolerate the prescription strength. They find that, it just makes them really, really irritated, flaking, red, sort of unpredictably
I
too.
know
Because
I can't tolerate
I
that.
can't
We've
tolerate
talked
it
about before.
either.
That's why I was actually
Yeah.
thinking that that's maybe what I was doing when I came to you 10 years ago, but it wasn't even that. See, I was like making lots of mistakes years ago, but I definitely could never tolerate that.
Yeah, a lot of my patients can't, and so so then we opt for what's the next best thing, and so retinal is really sort of the closest thing to prescription strength in terms of efficacy, but it's much better tolerated. So you start with just one retinoid night, and then you build in 2 recovery nights where you really avoid any kind of potentially irritating ingredients. So I say hold on any exfoliating acids, hold on the retinoid, just focus on hydration, rebalancing the skin microbiome, repairing the skin barrier. So that's where, I would use my Bow Glow cream, like just the really, really good clinically proven moisturizer that is going to do all of those things. And then you cycle back to night 1, which is exfoliation night. So,
but then you do that for 2 nights. You do that for 2 nights, recover for 2 nights.
It's exactly the classic skin cycling schedule or method is a 4-night cycle: exfoliation night, retinoid night, recovery night, repeat back to exfoliation night. That's the classic one. That's the one that most people will find is the right one for them. Now, when I have somebody who has really sensitive skin, like really bad rosacea, eczema, we may build in more recovery nights. If I have somebody who wants to take their skin cycling to the next level, for example, like during the spring, a lot of my patients start to build in more retinoid nights. So they'll do, for example, I'm on what's called an advanced skin cycling program. So what I'm doing right now is exfoliation night is night 1, retinol night, retinol night, retinol night. So I have 3
3 nights in a row. Wow.
nights,
okay.
And then I only have 1 recovery night, and then I cycle back to exfoliation night.
Oh, that's interesting, because I thought you were just going to say that you cut down the recovery nights and you go back to it, but you actually do the retinol nights 3 nights in a row. Okay, super interesting.
Yeah,
super
I try
interesting.
to do them consecutively 3 nights in a row, and then I give myself 1 recovery night, and then I'm back to exfoliation night.
Ooh, I like that. I think
in
I'm
the
going to try
morning,
that. I'm going to take it up a notch and do that. Like you just said,
it.
it's, yeah.
This is the time to push your skin.
I'll be texting you. I'll be texting you if it's not working or it's working, or I'll be texting you that this is working amazing. Why didn't I get a little more aggressive before?
Yeah, level up a little bit. This is the perfect time.
Amazing. Okay, so speaking of spring, and also thank you so much for that explanation of skin cycling, because I do know so many people have heard of it at this point, but not everyone actually fully understands it. So we heard it, everyone, from the source, from the creator of skin cycling herself. We just heard exactly what it is and how to do it. So yeah, thank you so much. But speaking of spring and taking things up a notch, I know you love to be outside. You love playing tennis and golf and, being outside with your daughter and your husband and all of the things. How do you handle sunscreen? How often do you apply it? And what other tips can you give us to protect our skin during these warmer months when we're outside a lot?
So my spring morning skincare routine is I cleanse, gentle cleanser. You do not need to double cleanse in the morning. Hopefully you didn't sleep in your makeup. Hopefully the only thing you're cleansing off is going to be the skincare from the night before. If you have really sensitive skin, you can just splash with warm water. I personally like to use a gentle cleanser because whether there's, a little crust on my eyes, maybe a little saliva or drool,
or a little bacteria from your pillow. I mean, there's got to be some dirt buildup. I mean, unless you're washing your pillows every day.
Absolutely. So I do like to use a gentle, creamy cleanser in the morning, pat dry. Then I use my Astacy Vitamin C Serum, which actually boosts the effects of your sunscreen. So a well-formulated vitamin C will amplify the protective effects of your sunscreen. So you do want to use your vitamin C in the morning. Then I put on my Bow Glow cream, my moisturizer. Then I use my sunscreen. So one of my favorite sunscreens is Beauty of Joshan. It's a Korean brand, Joseon. You get it at stylevana.com.
Okay.
You don't want to buy it.
We'll put this in the show notes, by the way, everyone. So you'll have that info.
This is a great one. I love this one. If I'm not wearing that one.
Why do you love that one so much?
So it goes on like skincare. It doesn't feel like sunscreen. A lot of sunscreens kill, they clog your pores, they dry out my skin, they break me out. And this one really it's beautifully, beautifully formulated using like filters that are not actually approved in the US. And then another one that I like, that if I'm not wearing any foundation and I just want to have like a little bit of sort of a nice tint and a warm glow, I'll use the Elta MD UV Clear. It comes in tinted. It's not going to be the perfect tint for every skin tone. So you're going to have to like test it and see if it blends into your skin. But if it does work with your skin, it's a really nice option for morning. If I am going to work and I'm going to be inside seeing patients all day, I am not reapplying my sunscreen every 2 hours. Like this is completely unnecessary, right? So maybe, before I drive home, if the sun is still out, I'll put on a little bit of a like powder, like a Color Science sunscreen powder. Those actually don't work great as your primary source of sunscreen. I never would rely on that as like my main sunscreen. But as like a little little extra something right before I head home. I'm just going to be in the car for a little bit. I'll throw that on. But that's very different from like if I'm weekends or if I'm with my, with my family and we're planning on really spending time outside, then 100% I'm reapplying my sunscreen every 2 hours. I'm wearing a broad rimmed hat, UPF 50 plus, like sun protective fabric. I'm wearing sunglasses. I'm wearing a rash guard. I'm wearing, long sleeve. There's so many breathable fabrics now that you can wear, whether I'm playing tennis, playing golf, or swimming with my family. Like you can actually find that they used to look terrible. I used to just feel sorry for myself. Like I was that person on the beach or in the pool and I'm like, I hate the way I look and everyone looks so cute in their bikinis. But now there are like so many cute brands that are coming out with these like adorable rash guards. And that just makes it so much easier because you don't have to reapply sunscreen like head to toe.
Okay, but what about vitamin D? Because so many people are so low in vitamin D, and obviously, I always want to protect my skin. I do apply sunscreen a lot, and that's been something I've been doing for years. I was actually doing that right, I think, before I met you. That I've been doing for a very long time. I think my mom scared me of the sun when I was very young, and so anyway, I've always reapplied sunscreen. But I know a lot of people have low vitamin D levels, and I've definitely heard that like it's good to at least get that vitamin D for at least 15 minutes, then apply your sunscreen, or apply your sunscreen instead of letting it soak in for, let's say, 15, 20 minutes. Apply it right before you go outside. So it hasn't fully soaked in or been fully absorbed, so that you can then absorb some of the vitamin D from the sun, and then it goes to work. How do you feel about all of that?
Well, number one, I just want to stress that, like, I think being outside is one of the healthiest things that we can all do. I am not that dermatologist who's going to say to you, like, stay indoors. I love being outside for my mental health, for my physical health. Like, there's nothing I prefer more than being in nature and being outside, whether it's hiking, playing sports, being on the water. Like, I love it. So,
and there are benefits to the sun. I mean, there are some benefits.
Tremendous benefits. It's true that you can't get vitamin D from the sun without damaging your skin. So it's the same UV rays that cause skin cancer that are required by your skin to make vitamin D. So I personally don't like to think about my sun exposure in terms of getting enough vitamin D. I get my vitamin D from supplementation. And I think that that's a much more reliable way, especially like I live in Greenwich, Connecticut. I work in New York. For me, like, how often am I really getting sun? What, a couple months a year? So like, I really need to have a consistent source of vitamin D throughout the year anyway. So supplementation is key. It's actually one of the main reasons why I also included vitamin D3, a vegan source of vitamin D3, in one of my inner skincare products in Dr. Whitney Bowe Beauty Night Mode, because vitamin D is also amazing for circadian rhythm and helping you get a good night's sleep.
Right. And I mean, and mood and metabolism. I mean, there's many.
Vitamin D is one of those things, like, I would recommend getting your labs drawn, finding out like what is your level, because you may need a very different level of supplementation from someone next to you, and you kind of want that to be monitored. You don't want your vitamin D levels to go too high either, because that has been correlated with calcification of blood vessels. That's not necessarily a good thing. So it's one of those things, like, do I think that everybody should be taking like at baseline, like a basic vitamin D supplement, that has like 1,200 international units? That's what I put in my night mode. Like, I think that's going to sort of be a great option for a lot of people. But I do think that if you have access to a doctor and can get your blood tested, I think it's a great thing to get your vitamin D levels tested and just get like a personalized, recommendation regarding exactly what level of supplementation you should be getting.
Yeah, absolutely. I totally agree with that. I mean, I think that a large majority of people out there, though, should probably be taking a vitamin D supplement. Now, that does not mean that everyone should be, but again, a large majority of people out there really do need one, and because many people do have such low levels of vitamin D, and they don't even necessarily know it. So that is one of those labs that I totally agree with you. You really do need to check and monitor, and then go on the appropriate supplementation, as you just mentioned, and then go and have your lab work done again, so you can see what's happening. But I know what you're saying, though. You're saying like it is good to get outside, of course, for so many different reasons, but it's also good, at least from your perspective, not to depend on the sun for your vitamin D. And so you kind of think of it like, well, I'm just going to totally depend on my supplementation and not depend on the sun at all and protect my skin from the sun properly. So
That's how I approach it.
yeah,
And there's, a number of
I get your
studies
approach.
supporting the idea that people don't really apply their sunscreen effectively enough to really block the sun anyway. People apply about 50% of what they're supposed to be applying. So it's not like you're completely creating the shield and you're not getting any vitamin D in your skin anyway. But I still think it's good practice to sort of think about like, okay, you're in the sun, be practical about it. Like try to protect your skin without, completely inhibiting your quality of life. Like don't let it just completely disrupt your life. But there are measures. I just got back from Hawaii with my family, and my family's we love being outside. My family literally could spend, morning to night outside. We're very physically active people and we love being outside. And we all came home, and my daughter has strawberry blonde hair. She's got porcelain skin. She and we looked like we hadn't even been on vacation. Like I was so proud. Like we did not have a tan. We did not have a
That's
freckle.
me, by the way. That's usually me when I come home, and my daughter makes fun of me. My daughter, who likes the sun a little too much, makes fun of me that I look like I have not been away. So,
but I
yeah.
love that, and it's so because and it's easy. We both had a blast. We were out the whole day,
Right.
but we reapplied our sunscreen. We wore a hat. We were just smart about it. So, it just takes an extra minute. It's a little bit annoying, but once you get into that habit,
Of course,
it just becomes
not a
part
big
of your
deal.
lifestyle. Yeah.
Okay, so what's next in skincare? Like, what's coming up? Where is skincare going?
I think that right now, clinically proven products that are not just, we came from a place where even a lot of what look like they're very science backed brands, their studies are really done primarily using surveys. They're what are called consumer perception studies. So basically it's like you give somebody a cream and then, a month later you say like, do you think that your wrinkles look better? Oh, 97% of users said that their wrinkles look better. So what we're doing now is I think there's just a lot more education, transparency. I think that, consumers are just so much more educated. And so now we're having these more honest conversations about like, well, actually, how did you test that? What did you do? And so, for me as a brand founder, we're committed to objectively measuring the changes in the skin. So we use instruments that actually measure those goals that we're looking to achieve in the skin, whether it be, improvement in fine lines and wrinkles, evening out the skin pigmentation, hydration. We're using corneometry, we're using colorimetry, we're using tuometers, next generation sequencing technology. Like we're actually measuring it and seeing, is there a statistically significant improvement? And we're talking about that and sort of educating, our consumers about that. And it seems as though people want that more and more and more. It's just people are just too smart now. They're not just looking for something that, oh, smells good. I like skincare. It's like self-care and smells good. Like they want something that works. If they're going to put the time in, if they're going to invest in something.
Just if they're going to spend the money and the time and do it, they want to be, again, it goes back to being intentional about it. What am I spending my time, energy doing? And where am I spending my money? And does this really work? And is it harming me or is it helping me?
Exactly. So I think just looking for and investing in products that from brands that you trust, that you really know are actually driving those results and are clinically proven products. I think that we're just going to see more and more.
I love that. Okay. Second to last question. And this might be a big one. So you can give us the nutshell if you want. How do we change our skincare routines as we age? And I am particularly asking about, I think, midlife, perimenopause, menopause. Obviously, we know teenagers have a different type of skincare routine,
Yeah.
but from our 20s, 30s into our 40s and 50s and 60s and beyond, how does our skincare change?
Okay, so many things, but I'm going to break it down into like two of the most impactful that are really good to know
Perfect.
about. So one thing that happens as we mature is that our skin is less capable of producing natural oils and lipids, things like ceramides. Our skin produces less hyaluronic acid. What does that mean? It means our skin just gets more dry. So
Hmm.
we become more reliant on a really good moisturizer. And so
And
you'll
estrogen too, is the estrogen decreasing in causing our skin to be dry as well?
yes, the hormonal fluctuations, specifically with perimenopause and menopause, will also lead to dehydration of the skin and less production of these natural lipids and oils in the skin. So,
Hmm.
looking for that really good moisturizer that dives into the skin, that's clinically proven to repair the skin barrier, and really using that twice a day. Like sometimes you could get away with, not using that up until now, but that's going to become your new best friend, and it's going to prevent, because you're going to notice that your skin's also more reactive, it's more sensitive,
Hmm.
like little things that you could tolerate just fine 5 years ago, all of a sudden you wake up and you have like hives and red patches and you feel like your eyes are blowing up, or you're like, what's going on? Like I didn't change anything in my routine, it's all the same, and your skin is just less resilient than it used to
Hmm.
be because of those changes in your skin's own production of its natural
Hmm.
oils and lipids and hyaluronic acid. So you're going to have to actively replenish that, which is also why recovery nights are so important, right? Like people who are going through
Okay.
perimenopause and menopause, they're like, skin cycling is the best thing that ever happened to them, because just building in
Incredible.
those recovery nights, they're like, oh my gosh, I can actually tolerate, those other ingredients. And that brings me to sort of the second thing that starts to happen when we mature, is that our skin cell turnover slows down. When we're in our 20s, our skin cells take about 28 days to turn over, about a month. Okay. When we're in our 50s, they take about 50 days. And as we
Wow.
get more mature, it's even slower and slower. What does that mean? It means that we start getting this piled up layer of dead skin cells on the very surface, and it just makes your skin look dull. It makes your skin feel rough,
Hmm.
and it makes your skincare not work as effectively. And so that's why building in and cycling in these exfoliating
I
acids,
was going
these
to say, we need more
retinoids.
exfoliation nights.
So you need these actives that are going to speed skin cell turnover. So exfoliating products will do that, and retinoids will do that. But the
Okay.
catch is, you don't want to just throw them back to back every night, because that can lead to irritation. So that's where
Okay.
introducing those types of ingredients and sort of giving them their own night. Like I can't tolerate layering an exfoliating product with a retinoid on the same night, and my skin would go crazy. So like each of those are powerful actives in their own right, and they work differently. They have different mechanisms of action on the skin. They're very complementary. So having each one have its own special night is actually wonderful for maturing skin, but you have to build in those recovery nights.
So smart. You're amazing. This was so incredible, so informative. You are always such just a wealth of knowledge. I love learning from you always. Now, all of you know why I love to just sit in Whit's office and just chat away. And, and I always love catching up with you, whether it's here on the podcast or just in real life. But I love, love, love talking with you. Thank you so much. Okay, so my very last question for you. How do you ignite your nutritious life on a daily basis?
Okay, so it's something that's recently been part of my life. We got a puppy. Her
Oh,
name is
I remember that. Yeah, I
Her
know
name
that.
is Elodie. She's actually highlighted on my Instagram channel now. So every morning, I am the one who sort of wakes her up and takes her outside. She just loves to be rubbed in the morning, no matter how full her bladder
Oh,
is, no matter how hungry she is.
oh,
She just rolls over and just she goes into this like little, like adorable, she's 7 pounds. She's just the tiniest little Maltese. And I literally just spend this time with her where no matter, I'm so busy in the morning. That's like my most productive time. I used to just wake up and it's like one thing after another, after another, after another, trying to get
that's
everything
me.
ready for the day. And I try to really use, because my brain is really awake in the morning. And so I couldn't get to my computer fast enough to start banging out work. And now with Elodie, we have these moments. It must be like a good 10, 12 minutes where I just play with her, and I completely
Oh,
lose track of time. And it just puts me in the best mood for the rest of the day.
probably really sort of stressing and calming
It's
for you.
it's so healthy to have a
So
puppy.
good.
I was never like a dog. I didn't even think I was a dog person. I got this puppy for my daughter. She
I
desperately
remember you
wanted one.
telling me about
I had
that.
no
Yeah.
interest in getting a puppy, and I am completely upset. This
Oh,
dog
I love it.
is like better than anything thing you could ever start your day with. So that just like sets me up on, I just smile every morning.
So nice.
Yep. And look forward
Amazing.
to it.
Oh, I love that. That's such a good answer. I love it. I love it. Okay. Well, thank you again so much for all of this. And everyone, Dr. Whitney Bowe's, her entire bio, so you can learn all about her, is in the show notes, as well as links to some of the products we mentioned, and of course to her skincare line, so you can learn all about it. And yeah, again, thanks so much, Whit, for being here.
Oh my gosh, my pleasure. So good to see you. This is so fun.
Love you.
Love you too.